Broncos country, what is going on? Your boy Marky Sports here. Today we are looking at the Denver Broncos positional overview. This is part 4 of this series, and today we're focusing on the cornerbacks. And let me tell you guys, I think of all the positional groups that we have, I think this is the one that not only could be the strongest one that the Broncos have, but could be borderline elite when you compare it to the rest of the NFL. Before we get into it, guys, uh, for those of you guys that don't know me, my name is Mark. I'm with Marky Sports here. I'm a Denver native, focusing exclusively here on the Broncos, on the Avalanche, and on the Nuggets. And I'll be doing a lot of fantasy football stuff as well. So if you guys are football fans, basketball fans, hockey fans, and you love Denver sports overall, hit that subscribe button. It'll really help out and help me grow this channel. So I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Another thing of note, if you haven't seen me any of my videos before, all of my opinions unbiased, all my videos, nothing's ever edited. There's no scripting. There's no kind of opinion that I'm trying to push. I just press record and I start talking to y'all. So hit me up in the comments with feedback. Let me know what you guys think. If you ever want to join the channel and get on, we'll do some sort of a joint episode together. I would love it, man. So hit that subscribe button, like I said, if you can, and spread the word. All right, let's get into it, guys. So quickly, the cornerback group overall. I love this group of the Broncos. I think that we have a lot of guys that have an insane amount of potential, playmaker, game-changing level type of potential. So starting it off the bat, we all know it. PS2, Pat Surtain. He is, in my opinion, the best cornerback in the NFL, point blank. He's never going to wow you on the stat sheet. He's not going to be the guy that's going to light up and get, 10 picks in a season, anything like that. But he just shuts his dudes down. They put him on the number one receiver. He locks him down. We don't have to get into it that much. I can make 10 episodes on it. The guy is an absolute elite stud. But what that does is that makes the second cornerback position opposite of him so much more important because you're going to have a lot more balls going that way. You're going to have teams trying to get their number one wide receiver on the other side, and just a lot more targets and a lot more attention flowing over to the left-hand side, or not the left-hand side, the opposite side of the field of him. So when I look at it and I think to myself, all right, last year we had Fabian Moreau who kind of stepped in, and he did, to his credit, he did an admirable job. I think he was solid. I think he had his moments, obviously, but overall, you can tell that he was a vet. He played pretty well, especially as the season went on, to fill in for Damari Mathis, who really really struggled last year. We'll get more into him. And then this year we ended up signing a vet in Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace, by all accounts, he really kind of projects to be very similar to what Fabian Moreau was overall. He's a little bit less experienced, but roughly the same age at the time of signing. He's kind of bounced around the league. You look at the PFF ratings. He's had some, he's had some seasons where he definitely struggled, and he's had some seasons where he was really good. But he's a lanky corner. He's somebody that, like I said, has been in, and I think he was signed in case one of these young guys that we have that are coming up, if they don't work out, he's a plug and play type of a vet, and he's the vet that can play some special teams too if called upon, and certainly if needed. So watch out for him, guys. As camp goes, he's number 39 right now is what he's wearing, and I think he's going to be an interesting type of a prospect when you go into that. But where it really gets interesting is with the two guys who I think are going to be the guys that are battling out for that second cornerback position and ultimately a lot more playing time. And that goes down to Riley Moss, who is our draft pick from last year, third round pick. We moved up for him out of Iowa. And then the year prior was Damari Mathis, and he was a third round pick we took out of Pitt. Both guys super young, but crazy amount of talent. And they're actually pretty different in the type of style corners that they were, at least when they projected, coming from college into the NFL. Damari Mathis, we definitely have more tape on and a lot more snaps. Riley Moss essentially just got a redshirt year last year, which was frustrating, especially in those last two games when we knew we weren't going to make the playoffs. I would have liked to see him more. He was really good on teams, but I'm excited to see him and what he does. And that camp battle. I mean, I know everybody's going to be talking about Bo Nix as they should. A lot of people are going to be talking about the wide receiver group. They'll probably be talking about the tight ends. They'll be talking about everything in the offense, right? However it relates to Bo Nix, that's what's going to be talked about. But this cornerback group and that positional battle for that second corner is going to be huge. It's going to be big time. and I'm really looking forward to it. I think both guys are uber talented in their own way. Now, in my opinion, I personally think Damari Mathis has a better chance of being a very, very good starting cornerback in the NFL in comparison to Riley Moss. Some people are gonna be like, "Oh, well, it's the whole white corner thing." Not really that at all, obviously. I think for me, Riley Moss, whenever you think about corners that are coming out of Iowa, they're all they really ran ever was zone, right? And we run a lot of zone here in Denver, obviously with Vance Joseph's defense. But there's a little bit of a transition, it seems like, from Iowa cornerbacks that come into the NFL. We had a couple examples in the past with some guys that we've drafted. And if you look around the league, that's kind of the same, overall. But I think when it comes to Riley Moss, he wasn't ever, to me, he wasn't overly impressive when you watch him in college. He was the guy that relies a lot more on instincts than his athleticism, even though he tested out very well and on tape he seems to be a pretty athletic cornerback. He was always more of an instinctual guy. I was a little bit surprised when you didn't really hear much about him in camp last year. He was just fine. I don't know, something about it just seems like he doesn't have necessarily that upside. He's somebody that is kind of a hybrid. I know when he was coming out of Iowa as well, there was a lot of analysts that were talking about him being maybe better served to play safety in the NFL, because he is somebody that has the ability to jump routes. He was a pretty good tackler, playing in Iowa. He's somebody that has the ability to play center field and kind of cover a lot of ground. And maybe ultimately that's where he ends up playing at one point in his career. But I will say there's not enough evidence to show that the guy can be a very, very good corner. But by no means does that I mean that he could be really solid. So I'm excited to see what that's going to be like. Now, the reason I think Damari Mathis has that ability to be a better starting cornerback than Riley Moss is because we've seen those flashes. We've witnessed it firsthand. Now we've seen him be really, really bad. Last year was tough. He had a game in his rookie season. He had like I think 3 or 4 defensive pass interference penalties. But then the next game, he really shined and he started to play a lot better. And then last year, I just think he got in the doghouse. I think he was a little bit, cocky in his head. And if you guys remember, I'm pretty sure it wasn't just his play that got him benched. I think it was a specific thing that he did in the Miami game. We were getting absolutely blown out. Obviously, it was a terrible game. And I think at that point the score was like 49-20 or 49-14, something embarrassing. And Damari Mathis went in and broke up a pass, and he just did the finger waggle and was like, you know, celebrating. Which immediately when I saw it, I was livid. And if you kind of notice, and if you remember, you didn't see much of him at all after that. Did he get burnt a lot in that game? I mean, everybody did. Was he the worst defensive player on that roster? At least for the first 4 games of the season, absolutely not. There was guys that were struggling a lot more. Um, so I think it was a lot more just being in Sean Payton's doghouse from maybe a personality standpoint. But to his credit, it seems like he's turned that around. He's bought in a little bit more because Sean Payton did say some glowing things about him. So I've seen the guy when he was coming out of Pitt, man, he was a playmaker in college. He had a ton of pass breakups. He would go up against really elite competition, play super well. Um, so I just think he's got a lot more of that upside, but he's definitely gonna have a lot of growing pains for sure when it comes to Demar Mathis. And so I really believe that ultimately Riley Moss is probably he's gonna get the first nod at it because he is Sean Payton's handpicked draft pick. I think that there's a lot of unknowns, and they're gonna be really curious. And I think camp, he's gonna do well this camp. Last camp too, he was hindered a little bit. He kind of was behind the 8 ball because if you guys don't remember, he had that sports hernia surgery. So even though I think he was technically ready for week 1, he might have not really been ready to play until week 3, maybe. But he wasn't really on the active roster much. But those kinds of injuries, when they happen in camp and you're missing 2, 3 weeks of camp, they can really hold you back. They can really hold you back a lot, especially as a rookie, not just because of the lack of reps, but also because of just the coaching staff can't really justify playing you over somebody else that's had a full camp, that's looked decent. Damari Mathis had more experience. Obviously, Fabian Moreau is a vet, so it was just hard for him to find the field initially. And then there was so much turmoil, and the defense was so bad for the first month of the season. Once they turned it around, the coaching staff just, they don't want to change anything at that point, which is very much understandable. But speaking of that defensive turnaround that we have, and that was epic. It was legendary type of a turnaround. One of the biggest reasons why the Broncos were able to completely flip the script, right, was number one reason, no doubt about it, was because of Jaquan McMillian. This guy, I can't say it enough. Maybe the rest of the NFL is not going to know it. Broncos country, if you do not know it, then obviously you're not a Broncos fan. An absolute dog, baller, playmaker, beast, shows up every single week playing in that slot cornerback position. So I think he is not only has the opportunity to be an elite or one of the best nickel cornerbacks in the NFL, I think he's already can be in the conversation just based off of the play that he had last year. Guy was off the chain, man. Amazing off the blitz. He's good in run support. Unbelievably sticky on defense. Brings a crazy amount of energy. I love everything about the way he plays. Shout out to David Talks Broncos when we did the joint episodes, part one and part two, a couple days ago. He had mentioned that he reminds him a lot of a young Chris Harris, and I 1000% agree. Was thinking about that myself, and I'm super happy that he said that because that's what he is. I mean, they profile very similarly. They're both about the same size. When you look at them physically, they're both undrafted. They both play with that undrafted chip on their shoulder. Are they the most athletic, fast, quick corners? No. Are they undersized, smaller? Absolutely. But my God, do they just ball out when they get their opportunities? And I'm curious to see if they will try to put, mix Jaquan McMillian and use them outside. But I would say, what's the point? We play a lot of nickel anyways in this defense. Not a lot of nickel. We play the nickel corner a lot. We play a lot of dime in this defense. So he's going to be getting a lot of reps, and he's going to be playing on the field. And if he's comfortable and he's absolutely elite there, then by all means keep him. I love him. I think he's phenomenal. Number 29. If you don't know who he is, you're going to know really, really quickly who the hell he is because the dude's an absolute baller. When you look at the rest of the group, all right, what the most intriguing one to me is Chris Abrams Drain. And what really made it more intriguing, I love the draft pick when we drafted him. I read a lot of good things about him pre-draft, then really did some digging into him post-draft. And the guy, I mean, he's solid. He's kind of has some Chris Harris Jr. to him as well. That's sticky. He's kind of a dog. Like I said, a little bit undersized, but man, he was physical. He seems like he's got a really good opportunity to be a great playmaker. But what was interesting to me is this last week in the final presser before the 5 weeks off before training camp on the last day of OTAs, um, Sean Payne had said, he said we had Bo as a first round grade. They were really happy with the overall draft class. They said they had Jonah Ellis as a second round grader. They got in the third. They had Chris Abrams Drain as a second round uh, type of a talent as well. So they were very, very high on him. I think that they had said the same thing about Riley Moss. I don't know if they said that they had a second round grade on him. I don't think they did. And I don't believe that they would have um, because they didn't. I mean, they did give up some equity to go up and get him. But anyway, that's besides the point. Um, but he's also said that the guys looked really comfortable. He looked really good. And then, you even had the secondary coach and pass game coordinator, Jim Leonard, who's extremely highly respected as well, say a lot of glowing things about him as well. Now, what I'm really curious about is he's always profiled as a nickel guy that would play more inside, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have the opportunity to play outside. And so I would really, for me, I would love to see a full on competition between Chris Abrams Drain, Riley Moss, and Damari Mathis. Just let them battle it out. That's a hell of a good young talented crew to create that competition. Um, I really love it. And then overall, the rest when you look at the rest of the cornerback group, you're filling it in with some guys that are unknowns. They may or may not make the team. I'm always curious about. I was pretty intrigued and excited to see what Art Green could do. He did make the team as an undrafted guy last year, but he was pretty much just it was a redshirt season. I think he might have played a little bit of uh, played a little bit of teams, but that was about it. But he's an intriguing guy because physically how he's built, he's kind of built differently physically than everybody except PS2. He's kind of got that PS2 length, 201 pounds, 6'1". He's a bigger guy. So he's somebody to keep an eye out on. I did hear some rumblings, and I forgot who it was that said it. That said that they were mixing in Art Green to play some safety as well, a little bit deep. So that might be something that makes sense. Quentin Newsom, an undrafted guy that we signed this year out of Nebraska. Um, and so don't really know too much about him. Didn't seem like it was overly impressive or anything that was, to write home about. I think he played 2 seasons at like Northern Illinois, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that real quick. And then transferred in his final season to Nebraska. He played a little bit of both too. Or maybe I'm thinking about the other Nebraska corner, the safety that we brought in. But I'm interested to see him. And then to kind of round it out, we have Devon Key, who was here last year. Tanner McAllister, who we ended up was another undrafted guy, and Reese Taylor as well out of Purdue, another undrafted guy. So it's a lot of other unknowns that are kind of playing back there, besides the main guys. But really, the big story is Pat Sertan, Riley Moss, Chris Abrams Drain, Damari Mathis. Those are going to be the storylines of camp. Can Patrick Sertan continue to improve, take it to that absolute next elite level tier? I think he can. He's still young, and I think his sky's the limit going to be for him. He's gonna get the bag next year. But those three young guys, man, it's going to be a hell of a battle. And then you're going to have Levi Wallace, that's there as a great insurance policy in case you need a vet that's experienced, that knows what to do, that needs to step in. I love this group. I think it is the best group besides the offensive line, maybe on the Broncos. I think it's the group with the highest upside, no doubt about it, even more than the receivers. And so I'm excited to see how camp kicks off. But let me know what y'all think. Who do you think is going to be the Broncos' second cornerback? You think it's going to, or I guess the other starting cornerback two? You think it's going to be Damari Mathis? You think it's going to be Riley Moss? You think it's going to be Chris Abrams Drain, Jaquan McMillian? Or do you think it's going to be ultimately Levi Wallace? I'll tell you guys, I think Jaquan McMillian is going to be the nickel. He's elite there. And I ultimately think it's going to be Damari Mathis who wins it out. But guess we'll wait and see. That's what I think is going to happen based off of like my opinion. But I think it's going to ultimately actually be Riley Moss that's going to get the nod because that's what the coaches are going to want more than anything. But we'll see because there's going to be a lot of things that Damari Mathis does to drive them crazy, as much as there's going to be some things to make him be like, oh, damn, this dude can play. Whereas they can maybe go with more of a steady Eddie when it comes to Riley Moss. Anyways, let me know what y'all think. Hope you guys like this video. More to come. I'm gonna break down the remaining position groups on his team, and we'll start getting into some other camp predictions, maybe some trade targets, maybe some people that are going to be on the trading block aside from Cortland Sutton, who is a pretty obvious one, and really just some things to look for at camp. So appreciate y'all tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening and happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there. We appreciate what you do. Spend some time with your family and your friends. Appreciate y'all. Mile high salute. And as usual,